Entrepreneurship is great, but can also seem overwhelming. Wouldn't you like to know the pros, opportunities, and problems with different business and investment strategies before you jump in? Well then, welcome to EntrepreneurshipXposed. Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Exposed with your guy Beez. And today we having another great conversation with another good friend of mine, Coach John Austin. What's good, brother? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I love the intro, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. You had a little fun with it, right?
Yeah, got to, man. Got to. I love it.
But how's everything been, man? I love when we have conversations because I feel like we take it to a whole different level, right? The things that we talk about, you know, it's refreshing to see other people interested in it because it's things that too many people feel like, oh, I can't deal with that. I don't want to know anything about it, right? So we embrace the challenge, and we love that type of those topics in that conversation.
Heck yeah, I love it because it's funny when you realize people realize or have a factual understanding in their mind. I can't do this, or why is it so far-fetched? I mean, we're in it day to day. We're trying to figure out the minutia behind it. So yeah, man, I love our conversations. They go deeper every time. So yeah.
That's what's up, man. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit more about who you are before we jump into this convo.
Yeah, man. It's funny to even do introductions. You got to think about who am I. Now, it's Coach John Austin, and I got the name Coach not from being a real business coach. I'm more of a business strategist, growth development strategist, if you will, for business. I got the name Coach from a client of mine. I was teaching football to his son at the time, and he's like, man, you teach football and business the same way. You should be coached 24/7, and the name just stuck, right? But I've been in this business now 17 years. It'll be our 17th anniversary this year. So shout out to God just letting us be in this thing this long. I started out in the real estate space, and then over time went into the consulting space. And then I'm like, I'm making more money consulting, and I like it more than real estate. Let me just stay in this lane and see where this thing goes. And it went from more consulting to there's a lot of people out here who don't really understand the fundamentals of this business and how to grow and scale. And I'm looking at the data, why these businesses failing. I'm like, oh, okay, I see where my niche needs to be. And we've been there probably the last 7 years, is really in that growth development, fundamental space, you know, planning and strategy, and now getting more into the contracting space and the credentials that are needed. So we found a really good niche there, man. So I'm enjoying it.
You know what? And because we have similar backgrounds too, that's why we connect so well. Because also, wouldn't you say that, first of all, that's not the sexy path, right? Like when you talk about these things, when I've spoken about it in the past, that's not what people are the most hype about. When I told them about, oh, I was renting out cars, exotic cars through Turo, and then launched into, you know, a direct rental fleet and blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, tell me more. But when it talks about scaling your business, you know, people are just like, okay, whatever. But yet the large Fortune 500 companies, the ones that know how important it is to do the things that we're discussing, they're the ones that's hiring us as consultants to come in and, you know, to kind of make that type of change, implement that, correct the inefficiencies in the process so that you can scale better. Focus on your team and how they collaborate and interact with each other, the communication, the process itself, the technology that's used, everything. It's important in order to grow into a, you know, multi-million-dollar and billion-dollar company.
Yeah, it's how they need it, and it's funny because what social media says isn't sexy. It's not the same thing that the real world says is sexy.
Yeah,
and people want bottom line. How can you make me more efficient? I need to do more with my time, with less time. And how can I get my bottom line better off? Especially in this time now. I like this inflation, recession era that we're in because the chickens are going to come home to roost. Because if you can't make this thing work, you're not going to make it work. And the fundamentals, let's get back to the fundamentals. Why did we ever leave the fundamentals in the first place? And like you said, people do hire. Companies hire for folks like us to come in and look at their businesses and let's figure out how to make this thing more efficient and more profitable. So the sexy thing for me is deposits in the bank. And that's what we really all should be looking for. And nothing else.
Yeah, there we go. That's what it boils down to, right?
That's it, man.
So now we have a similar background, but we also somehow ended up on the same path going forward, right? And you also got into business acquisition, right? So before we talk about business funding and exposing that industry, let's talk a little bit about acquisitions, because I love when I have somebody else that I can talk to about this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you are in the practice of acquiring companies as well, right? How has that gone off for you?
I mean, I did it not realizing, honestly, it was mergers and acquisitions. It was a matter of, I started getting hired on by a few companies, right? They're like, okay, we see you as a small company. How are you able to move like this? Can you help us? Because they don't have any ego. I need to make this money too. How can you help us? So you get inside of these businesses, and this is where the acquisition came from. They're like, listen, your current marketing department is kind of lackluster there, but you would be better if you would have joint venture with, in my mind, I'm like, JV with this small company, bring them in, they would help you, you'd help them. And then why don't you go ahead and acquire them later on? And it's like, you may never thought. Now, the big companies always want to acquire, right? Because they don't want you in their path. Hey, come on board, be a part of us or whatever. And the smaller companies just don't want to get kicked out of their own firm. So we can negotiate those terms. But that's where the acquisition space really came from. And then I'm seeing smaller businesses who are like, don't start a new one if you don't have to. Why don't you find a seller who's really ready to exit, right? And who has the business you want. They're doing what you want to have done. Kind of like we talk about mentors, but find a business that's already doing it and bring them on board, and you could JV. And so that's where the acquisition space really came from me. And it really was a matter of, why do something that's already being done? Just bring it on in.
Exactly.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Bring the wheel on board.
There we go. Exactly. And it's one of the only it's the best industry to get into to reduce your risk as much as possible. There's always going to be some form of risk. But if you have a historic data sheet of financials and everything for years, a decade or more, then you can at least understand what you're getting yourself into and how much cash flow you can buy yourself by acquiring this company.
That's a whole conversation by itself. And then people don't think business plans are sexy, or business development plans or marketing plans are sexy, but there's a risk assessment that should be in everyone's business plan model. Mm-hmm. And if you're buying less risk assessment, you're buying more profit margin, i.e. buying predictable cash flow. So when you go to a bank, we'll talk about that later, all that falls. So it's not sexy, but at the end of the day, we need to make it sexy. Those numbers need to be more sexy to people. Why you want to struggle and you don't have to. Be more strategic, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So then that now leads into what I discovered about you after knowing you for a while. And then I was like, oh yeah, cool. This guy talking about the same thing as me. Oh, we both acquiring businesses. Oh, this is cool. Then I find out that, and I also knew that you were on the financial side, something with financing, something with funding. I didn't know quite what yet until a certain day when you explained everything. And I said, wait a minute, are you serious? And then I discovered that through the acquisitions, your company can also help with financial due diligence, which is a key aspect of acquiring any company, financial and your legal due diligence. Right. Exactly. So explain that, your due diligence part of what you do in acquisitions.
So when you're taking on a business, you're really taking on two major things, in my opinion. Yes, the culture, but the cultures have to merge. But you're taking on leadership and how that company has been successful over time. But at the end of the day, you're taking on their financials, their profit and loss, their EBITDA, good and bad or another, their cash burn, their break even, all of the numbers that make this business attractive. Netflix, for example, didn't have a very good financial model, i.e. why they're at where they're at. But other companies, even in this recessionary time period, the cash flow and the profit and loss, those numbers you want to make sure are healthy. So for us, looking at a business and the health of a business, I'm going to put money in. I want to acquire this business because I like it, because it's going to make me money over time, right? So we look at the numbers as, are these numbers true? Let's look at the fixed variable costs. Let's look at profit margin. Let's look at net over gross. Let's look at debt. Let's look at all the things that fundamentally make a business. And can this business, with its current financial makeup, last another 5, 10 plus years? Can we bring on new employees? Are we hiring the right people? Are those salaries? All those things. I mean, there's 15 tabs on the spreadsheet that we have to go over to make sure it's healthy. It's like you go to a doctor, they do all your lab work. Well, on the financial, and I would even say on the numbers end, because sometimes people think financials from my perspective, and they get a little scared. Like, I don't want to look at the finances. Let's just make sure that the numbers make sense. And at whatever multiplier effect you're adding, that's what we look at. So through due diligence, we are kind of a stress test. So we're going to stress these numbers to make sure, yeah, you say you're profitable and you're good, but the numbers don't lie. The numbers will not lie. And under those tests that we do, we can then go back to our clients and say, yes, this is a good company, or it's not. This is what you should look for. And it will give guidance on what they should do fundamentally to make sure that this business is successful long term.
There we go. There we go. And then you even take it to the next level. So that's financial due diligence before acquiring a business.
Yes.
So after acquiring it, what does the Bank Ready program really do?
So Bank Ready is kind of a multi-tiered, faceted program. So when your business starts, right, when you get off the ground, say through an acquisition, you know what you're getting into. So you've bought the car, you've test driven the car a little bit. So now it's time to take it on the freeway. So what we do even beforehand is we test the market. Are you bankable for the marketplace? Not just financially, but does your business model, does the market want what you have? So you're dating the market. You want to court the market, take it on. So what does the market say? Do I want you or not? And if you are accepted by the market, how do you then help to make the market better, right? Because businesses are here to solve a problem, make things more convenient, etc. So does your business solve a problem? What are you working on? What are you fixing that's a need in the marketplace? You want to do a market feasibility study throughout acquisition, at the end of acquisition, but in the Bank Ready model is we've done the market research. Now we know how to attack the target market and niche things down for you. So that's super important on the market side. Executing that business plan and that business model takes time too. So Bank Ready does that as well. And we also make sure that financially, the numbers, how do we project out the right amount of growth? Are we hitting break even? And when do we really get to that profit margin and in that net profit margin? And are we sustainable? That at the end of the day is all tested through Bank Ready. And I see why a basic business plan doesn't do that for you. You have to have all those matrix involved to make sure that your sustainability and profitability in the market is pristine. And that's in essence what Bank Ready does for you, startup or not.
Perfect. And then basically, as its name says, it makes you bank ready. So now you can get the most amount of funding from any bank going in with this type of data.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Now, and you and I have had conversations, and I've told you in the past that there's so many things that you could do with business credit. That's why I never focused so much on like government programs, going through the SBA or any, even when PPP and all of that came out, I was like, no, thanks, I'm fine, right? But that was my decision because I just prefer to avoid the paperwork and maybe certain restrictions that come when dealing with the government, right? But you've also made a business of helping people to get grants, right? So apart from before we dig deeper into the business credit side and the getting funding through banks and such, whether it's the government or not, can you talk a little bit more about the grant side? Like how does that work? Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, what should you be looking out for?
Got it. So we have the brand trademark Bank Ready. We also have the brand trademark Are You Grant Ready? And I'm noticing that this a ton, and shout out to my staff member Siobhan. She's great. She's our grant specialist. She understands this space very well. So bringing her on, like a mini acquisition, bringing her on and the expertise, I wanted to teach grants aren't just for nonprofits. There's a lot of grants out here for for-profit businesses, for startups, for working capital, for equipment. There's multiple areas where there are for-profit companies that have a certain part of their budget that they are putting back into the business community for startups, for women-owned small businesses, for different categories of businesses, right? So when you are able to make sure that, again, Bank Ready, because think of it this way, there's money on the table that they want to help startups with, because that's economic growth, economic injection. So these companies want to have a play in that. And I think that's kind of a mandate that they give something back to their communities. But they want to make sure this $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 grant Where's the money going? How are you going to use it? And how are you impacting the economy? How many people are you hiring? So there's kind of a criteria for certain grants, right? So if it's Black women owned, or if it's this or that, or certain industries, et cetera. That's why it's important to have that business development model to let a bank or a company know, especially when it comes to grants. And grants aren't as difficult. You don't need a grant writer necessarily. You just have to make sure that you're a part of different minority organizations, a part of your chamber of commerce, things of that nature. And that rabbit hole will take you through, also be a part of your minority supplier council. Those companies are there. They're sitting in a room with these CEOs. So when you do your pitch or your spiel, then you can say, hey, these grants are available for Atlanta, Houston, Florida, markets. It's all over the place. But you got to be in these rooms and have your business development model ready to say, here's how we would use those monies. And then according to the criteria, do you meet that as a business? So if we really start operating more like a business, the grants are almost like applying for a loan. They're not that great a difference in the two, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I might, take you up on it. I stay away from them usually, but having a resource such as yourself, that makes it easier for me, right?
Yeah.
But now let's go into the business funding side, because that's what we're here to expose today, the entire industry of business funding, right?
Oh my
And I'm going to start with the first thing that I know has been the narrative on how to build business credit and how to get business funding for years. And that was the whole net 30 accounts, pay to vendor, get to the tier ones, to the tier twos, to the tier threes. Then you could get certain credit cards, right? You would be approved for certain lines of credit, for certain trade lines. And in particular, the shift happened in the last few years where it's only the type of things like maybe a Home Depot card, Shell gas station card, right? Which is cool if you're in a construction business or if you're a trucking company and you need either one of those. But you're also going to want the ones from the major banks too. You're going to want lines of credit from them. And they don't focus so much on your paydex score as they used to. Now it's all about PG, unless you're at corporate credit level. So it's more important to fix your personal credit first before really going into worrying about your business credit. But tell the people your perspective. If you feel that I'm correct as well, if that shift is made, but what is it that you feel is, as of 2022, the recipe to building business credit?
So, God, this is such a wild topic because I never knew all of this extra minutia, and I'll even say sometimes crap existed until I got on social media about a year and a half, 2 years ago. There's so many credit experts out here that aren't really experts at all, because everybody doesn't fit into this bowl of do tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, Exxon, Amazon, all these different things. Like, I don't need any of that. The bank that you really need is a relationship with a couple banks. And I'll say multiple banks, credit unions, your CDFIs. You want to have a relationship with the top 5. Okay, I'm not a big fan of them because I think they abuse the community, but you want to know and have a relationship with the Amexes, the Chases, the Bank of Americas, et cetera, right? You want to have a regional banking relationship, Regions Bank, et cetera, Fifth Third, whatever, and then have one with your local community development financial institutions or your credit unions. You want to grow the relationship with the bank because every bank has a different appetite. So Chase Manhattan may want to see how much money you can put in the bank, and then they'll give you a line of credit and or based on your personal credit. Because here's the thing. We may be 30, 40 years old, right? But the business might be a year or 2 years old. That's a baby still with no revenue. So you expect the bank to extend you a line of credit with a good interest rate, and you're a baby still. Make it make sense. Yeah. And those banks don't care if you've got tier 1, tier 2 credit. Now there are, and I will say for a disclaimer, right? Because it's going to be on the airwaves. It's not a bad idea to start off with a couple of small tier 1, tier 2 credit and build yourself up. Because everybody's got to go to Office Depot, but go where you're needed. If I'm in real estate, you better have a Home Depot line of credit, right? And there's ways you can work that out. Office Depot, yes, but don't get this extraneous, crazy lines of credit that you're not going to use. Go directly to the source and start building a relationship with the institutions you're going to use day to day. Make sure that your initial deposits are of a certain amount. And that way, through your balances and your income and your revenue, then the banks can extend you a line of credit. Because sometimes we don't need as much as we think we do. You don't need $50,000, $100,000 line of credit. And if you do, what are you going to do with it anyway? Where's the revenue to pay this credit off regardless? So let's look at how much debt we truly need and then go for the institutions that can supply us with that debt that can be leveraged for things that we need to drive revenue. I think if we just handle it right there and start getting so caught up in all these, because some of these lines of credit that I see, you got to have a certain amount coming through your account. A lot of us don't. Some of these lines of credit are kind of high interest rates. So some of you on social media, shame on y'all for getting these people involved in these 12%, 15% interest rate lines of credit. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Look at how much revenue you can drive and how much debt you need to leverage, and then grow that over time with the correct institutions. Having that bevy of a portfolio of institutions in your back pocket and allowing them to help you grow your revenue, that's what we really need to be, my opinion.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, right? That's how it should be. And making sure that you have that revenue coming in before or in conjunction with to how much debt you're taking on, right? Mm-hmm. Don't take on debt without that plan of how you're going to have revenue coming in also in order to pay it off, because you're utilizing that debt for a purpose, not just getting it just to have it for, the sake of having it.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Now I'd rather have debt than have too much fiat currency as well.
Of course.
Because cash, you want to have a little cash reserve, you want to have enough debt, but what does your business need? Like, I may need $1 million line of credit, right, to go out and do certain real estate transactions. I want to pull the credit right away, right? But then you need maybe a mix of revolving credit, a lot of credit, a loan from a bank, micro loans if you're just starting. So there's so many things out here. You want to be really financial literate to the products that are available and how do those products affect your business need, and then how will you execute on those loan products.
So you also said the strategy I typically recommend as well, which is the credit unions, the regional banks, the community banks, right? All of those things, the minority depository institutions, focusing on, and yes, the big dogs as well. But they're secondary in my opinion, because the credit unions, for example, are dying to give out money. They're way more willing than the big boys are. So by having relationships with multiple banks, some banks are by definition a relationship bank too. Some are just going to look at specific numbers. What's your if they're doing a PG, what's your FICO, whatever number FICO 10 or not FICO 10, but like FICO 9, 8, 7, whatever it may be for the type of lending that you're looking for. Whereas a relationship bank like a Navy Federal that everybody seems to know about, Navy Federal is like, hey, if you have more products with us, we'll give you more products. Or you get with us is the more we just keep giving you, and they have their own internal scoring rather than only your FICO, right? Yes. But knowing all of that, what do you say is the best path to getting the most funding as well, right? And you could include the grant side too. But what would you give as a strategy to get the most funding possible when you're starting your business, and if it's different for when you're like growing your business?
I would say, first of all, join your Chamber of Commerce, join your Minority Supplier Development Council, and start attending those meetings. Because whatever city you're in, so I'm in Houston, if you're Atlanta, Florida, you want to know what the local feel is with the institutions that are there. Get yourself minority certified on a city level, on a state level, and register with your with the federal side. I don't want the federal government in my business. They're in your business anyway. Okay, let's get that out the way. Yeah. These are federally backed and or insured, banking institutions. But the reason why I say get minority certified, if you're a woman in business or Black and brown in business, the CDFIs, if you look back at the CARES Act, okay, the money that's coming down, they go to tribal organizations and they go to CDFIs. Yeah. So there's billions of dollars that are getting pumped into the credit unions that, as a minority business owner, which a lot of us are that are tuning into this, and especially all the ladies out there, shout out to y'all. You have to be woman-owned certified, and then you walk into the bank just like a degree with a credential, and the banks are like, oh, okay, we've got set-aside funds just for you guys. Because if you don't walk into the bank with that credential, you're technically considered competing with the white male. And if you're not certified, you're kind of in the same basket, but you don't have to be. So why don't we go for money that is earmarked for us in our small businesses and develop a relationship with the banks that have an appetite for us? Some banks may be more tech, some more farm, some more ag, whatever. So when you go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings, which is number one, you learn who's what. And when you present your business, hey, this is what I'm doing, the Chamber of Commerce folks will say, hey, you need to go talk to so-and-so or go talk to so-and-so. And then you learn how the industry is set up for you to win. Then you develop a relationship with those institutions, and that's how you get those lines of credit and loans based for what you have a need for. And that right there is something that we don't do enough of. But if we started there, it's a definitely rabbit hole you want to go down. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like that. Now, I've heard the other side of this of the coin, where some people would say, don't only worry about getting minority certified, right? Because it may limit what's available to you, and they want the availability of everything. All right. What do you think about that?
Bad advice. Whoever says that. I get why they say that, because sometimes they get stuck in like the hub zone. Like, I'm only going to be in the poor part of town, da 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 da. No, minority certifications have been around for a while. The Minority Business Development Agency just became a permanent agency through the infrastructure or the CARES Act this last fall. So you've got minority business development all over the place. So to say that it doesn't limit you at all. Now, where your address is, yes, if you're in the hub zone compared to if you're in the prime area, so you do want to have different divisions in your business. But we're talking about just coming out the gate, right? That year 3 to year 5, kind of that growth scalability time frame. It's not just focusing on that, but that's who you are. So you can't compete with a larger tier population or the dominant society when you haven't grown in scale where you are first now. So get there, because once you stay there, you'd be surprised the multi-million dollars in business opportunities and contracts and funding that you're just looking aside from. So I say to those people that made that comment, you haven't been in this long enough. So don't say things like that, because you're kind of missing the boat there. You really are. I'm saying from my perspective.
I feel you. And in the comments I see, we have some, Shalisa asks if you could repeat the things that they need to join.
Okay, so the first thing would be your local city chamber of commerce. So I say join the Black Chamber of Commerce, join the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and join your local city chamber. There's a national chamber of commerce as well. Yeah, it's a lot to join, but they kind of speak the same language. Yeah. So your city chamber, Black and Latino chamber are great. There's other chambers too, but get there first and they'll take you there. The National Minority Supplier Development Council. If you Google that and put your city behind it, you'll see where to join there. They're a private organization, but they deal, the city and state is more the government side of it, right? So you're dealing with the county or the parish, right? But when you're on the minority supplier side of things, you're dealing with the private side, Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies. Those are the big boys that you want, because they do have, kind of like diversity inclusion is on the W-2 side, is for when you work for a company. The Minority Supplier Council, that's the minority side of companies working with minority certified businesses. So you stay right there, that rabbit hole, because it's endless. So when people say don't do that, I'm like, why not? You imagine, I want to work with Amazon or GlaxoSmithKline or whomever. Well, they've got a Supplier Development Council affiliation. They are a part of that organization. So get in a room with these CEOs. You'd be surprised those conversations that come about. Join those, go to those conventions. Man, we can be here for 2 hours, and I guarantee you people, and then you want an acquisition, you merger an acquisition with these smaller businesses and grow your brand that way. Now you're better suited to feel a need in the community or feel a need for whatever's in the marketplace. You're better equipped, but you got a better toolbox. And now you're trying to go B2C and sell it to everybody in the world. No, let's go B2B out the gate. The gate. Those conversations change after a while.
Definitely. I'm definitely a proponent of B2B businesses overall. I mean, B2C, when there's a recession or any type of dip, discretionary income, is going to lower, and then they're not going to spend as much. But B2B, they still need to have their business operating. So your service is vital to their business. Right? Exactly. So definitely a good point. Now, so shift a little bit in business funding. So we know what it is. We know how to get it. We talk about building it up and all. But as an entrepreneur, what did you do with business funding? How did you make that into a business, helping people to get funding? How did that come about? And where do you see it going right now? Because we're about to get into our pop segment. And you already know that the pop segment is pros of that industry, helping people with business funding, the opportunities that exist in the industry that's going to make it continue to take off, And then, of course, the problems that you faced and the obstacles that people need to be aware of.
So how do we get into it? So just recently, we took a class to get certified as a business purpose broker, if you will. So we've got over 70 lenders at our disposal. So for business purpose funding, our company took a class. And again, you take a class for this stuff, and you do business purpose funding, just like there's the business sites for business brokers to sell and buy businesses. You can get certified to actually do the business purpose funding as a broker. So I have access to lenders to where I know what criteria you need to meet. Bank ready again. I know how to underwrite that. I know what underwriters need to see. So based on your need, we know as a broker where to send you, right? And how to get that funding. There's a lot of funding through the SBA that we aren't touching still to this day. The SBA has a lot of approved lenders that people aren't even touching. So make sure you know who your local SBA office is. Go talk to these guys, and they'll give you a list of SBA approved lenders that you need to go talk to. So over the years, I've always worked around the SBA. It was kind of a standard thing. Get minority certified, deal with my local SBA and organizations like that, and they'll walk you into the door of who they're already affiliated with. That's as simple as I can put it. I think as an entrepreneur, that's where you want to go out the gate, and they'll lead you to them. So those Chamber of Commerce meetings, SBA meetings, all of that, that'll take up a lot of your time, and you're not wasting time, right? Because they tell you where to go because they've approved them already.
There we go. There we go. So what would you say is a pro of this strategy, this business strategy?
A pro to it is entrepreneurs, we don't have time to waste on anything. We have to be extremely diligent with our time, very focused, very strategic. So why don't I go to the source who their job is to make sure that these lenders are approved and that they're helping the business community out? Small businesses are failing, they're this and that, but small businesses are the heartbeat of this country. So that's saving time and being efficient. That's, I say, was a major pro. Follow the money. Right? Success leaves clues. That's a big success bubble over there. Go to those guys and talk to them and build a relationship. That's a big pro right there. Save you time.
And everybody needs funding. So to be able, you have endless customers as long as you reach out properly. So
that's it. Yeah. Endless.
And what about the opportunities in that industry now? Like what's changing in the market or anything that's going to make this even, a greater strategy to go forward with?
I would say right now there's such a need for money, and there's so much money that came through quantitative easing, right? They dumped a lot of cash into the market that hasn't been used yet, right? We go to PPP, EIDL just dried up as far as they just closed that door, but there's still a lot of money in the marketplace. So the opportunities, honestly, are immensely endless right now. There's so many opportunities that are just waiting for you to come on board for. But what I've noticed and where we position ourselves for us as an opportunity in our SWAT, the SBA and all these guys are over here, the entrepreneurs are way over here. There's a gap in the middle of how do we get over there, Coach? So what we've done, let us be the bridge to take you where the money is and where the opportunities are, because there's a ton of business opportunities that we just don't know exist. So and most of our clients, they think I want to go this route, but when they see the opportunities available, they're like, wait, hold on. I'm going to go over here and do this to drive good revenue. I'll do that passion project later. Yeah, so the opportunities change when you get into the room. The rooms change the conversation. And based on your superpower, you'll tell what you can do or can't do. But if we're not in these rooms, you never know the opportunities exist.
There we go. And of course, we got to get into what are the problems, though, the obstacles that we have to go over in order to, go through with this strategy.
I'm going to be totally honest, and I run into this myself. The problems come in, which one works best for me, right? There's a lot of money, and all money isn't good money, even from institutions. You've got to find, and just like you're dating for a spouse or whatever, right? What's this right mix for me? Where's the right synergy for me? And studying the marketplace is something we don't do enough of, which causes problems. Stop going for the low-hanging fruit, the nice, flashy things. People on Instagram, and I get really sick and tired of seeing people all these, come get this business credit and so taking a trip here and there. They're really taking the trip off the money you pay for these courses. You don't have to pay for many courses. I have a Coach Austin approved list of people that I know, and there's probably 3 of them that I know that do business credit and things of that nature. Everybody else is, I don't want to say that, but they're not. They're only doing this for like 6 months and they're an expert now. The problems are we don't want to go with what's tried and true. Flashy and new, no. These are financial institutions we're talking about here, y'all. Okay? Go with what's tried and true. Go with what's proven and take your time in court. And really, the problem is we need to turn this conversation around. We are the provider of services. We need the bank's money, but you don't just have to take anything. So date and court them, right? And see how much money you need to put into the deposits, how they lend, why they lend, what structured terms are out there for you. What's the best lending product for you right now that you can scale with? Do your research. Don't be so quick to pop off. That's a problem. We run too fast and then we get hurt. And now it takes you so much time to get back to the right thing. Oh, it's a scam or it doesn't work for me. No, we got to do our due diligence, man. Go back to that due diligence thing again. We got to do our due diligence. Slow down, learn the market you're around, even on the financial end of things. And then you'll see much better. That relationship with that banker is prime right now. Prime right now.
Okay. I love it. Now, I always got to come back to this question, though. So what is your next acquisition? Sometimes I ask people what's going to be their first acquisition. But for you, what do you think is your next acquisition? Is it about a specific industry that helps a different business you already have? Or is it just about the numbers?
A little bit of both. And I'll be honest with you. Let me retrace that answer. I always look at where the market is going. Okay. So if I'm looking at something that's tech heavy right now, tech isn't going away. Yeah, the stock prices are low, but tech isn't going anywhere. So our next major acquisition is in an AI space, artificial intelligence space, to help our systems get better so we can help our clients get better. Okay, so we build our business development plans. We're looking for that acquisition. Okay, I'm looking for kind of a heavy equipment company play. I can't say too much about it, but the infrastructure bill, again, they're looking to build the infrastructure of these United States. I want to get a play in there so that I'm a major buyer and seller of certain parts that these heavy equipments are going to be using. I'm OSHA certified, so I've done projects on these plants before, so I know what they need. And I made that strategic move years ago to work in these plants to see what's needed and what's not, right? But a major acquisition that we're looking at is in the healthcare space. What was beauty, and we had this conversation, what was beauty and kind of vanity is almost a health need right now. Because the depression level is high, man. We're going through a lot as a community, all of us. I don't care who you are. You're going through something. And if you need to get a little tummy tuck, a little this, a little that, even the guys are doing stuff. There's certain healthcare businesses that used to be vanity space. But now people are putting money into it. And if you feel better, you are better, and you can just have a better quality of life, man. So we're looking heavy into that space. So I don't say it off just for you ask that question, but we're definitely looking for that. Because again, those are going to be cash flowing assets that have a proven history. And you look at where the markets are going, it's not going anywhere.
And I love that you mentioned, like, you thought you're strategic in knowing where infrastructure is going. And a lot of money is going to be poured into infrastructure to rebuild, to improve. Now you're going to get a cash flowing business that's already in infrastructure because you made that. You're looking at the business as a product instead of focusing on the end result of the business. You're looking at the bigger picture, knowing what's going to grow more. And now you're getting something without having to start from scratch in there and into a major area. I love it. That's the beauty of this, is because now you don't have to start from scratch. You get a head start, and you could, pick and choose your industry more instead of only what you already know, right? And what you could build yourself. Exactly. Now you're just scaling. I love it.
I would tell people, make sure you're not just on the real estate front. When you get in touch with the city economic development director, I'll say it again, the economic development director and the city planner are two people you need to be in their office, because these developments don't just happen overnight. They plan these things out 5-10 years in advance. Join your Rotary Club. Please join your Rotary Club. Those are conversations you don't see on the news. They happen on the golf course after the fact. But when you know where the city is going, where these industries are going, you can plan and have guidance for your own businesses and then make a decision on where I want to go. So in chess, you don't want to be the pawn being moved. You want to be the one moving the pawns on the board. And if you're in more control of that further out, so keep your day job. Please don't quit it. Quit following that advice too. Don't quit the day job, but be strategic about where you're spending your time and where these markets are going, and then how can you fall in line with that.
Perfect example is like in the last few years, it's really just the last year. It's about 12 months now, when the announcement really came heavy that Miami and South Florida was going to focus on crypto and Bitcoin and NFTs, right? And be a city that's the hub for all of that. Now you know, okay, how do you get into it quick? You can't go start a business from scratch and get into it quick, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that's not the get into it quick and be at the beginning of the trend. Now you can acquire something that's already in that area, and now you know where it's going to grow. So yeah, I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. Speaking of NFTs, I have a book that's dropping in probably a week or two. So y'all keep an eye on that. It's an NFT blockchain kind of bundle, and it gives the fundamentals of NFTs, how they work, what's going on with that, and the fundamentals of blockchain. Yeah. So I haven't told you about that yet. Yeah.
You send me that link. We'll make sure it's in the caption below so everybody can find it whenever they watch this episode. Now I have to end off with the most important question. And I've mentioned this one to you before too. So the $1 trillion table. There's a challenge that by the end of this decade, I want to be in a room at a table, the $1 trillion table, where we have $1 trillion assets under management. And I expect to see many of people that look like me in there. All right. So will you be part of this $1 trillion table, this challenge? And how do you see acquisitions and business funding helping you to get there?
I'm gonna add one piece that'll make it happen for a lot of us, and I don't want us to be scared of it. Will I be at the table? Heck yeah! I want a whole section. I want a corner. I want the whole because I don't want us to be afraid of $1 billion businesses. Because if you got $1 billion, I got $1 billion, and we got enough of us brown and black people in that space, there's no reason why we can't do it. But there's a quick way of doing it, and I mentioned it throughout this podcast, and I've said it before. You got to get minority certified to be able to play ball and get these government and public and private contracts so that when you're making these acquisitions, your business works better. Business is not just me. I got a staff of almost 15, 17 people now, right? I have staff. We have payroll. So to bring these acquisitions on, the government doesn't do the work. Public and private, they don't really do the work. They hire either W-2 or they have private contractors come in and do the work. So we position ourselves with those certifications and we're in different rooms. 6 and 7 figure conversations are kind of small. One of my recent clients in Florida, black lady developer, just got a $24 million contract 2 weeks ago. So she's then been offered another opportunity to be a lead on another contract that pays more than that one. So when we talk about $20 million, $50 million contracts as a norm, we can get to the $1 billion level. We definitely can scale there. So will I be there? Heck yeah. How I'm doing it? You got to play ball in the lane where you're at that gives you the most tools for that battle. And if you're not certified and you're not at least entertaining government, public, and private contracts, you're missing it. You're so missing it. And there's no reason why we can't. That's the $1 billion play. And if more of us did it, man, listen, game over. Game over.
I love it, man. Well, listen, Coach, thank you so much for coming on to Entrepreneurship Exposed. Bro, it was a great conversation as always. I know that everybody got some amazing gems, some amazing information, some sustainable strategies out of this conversation. So thank you again for coming. Everybody make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more conversations like this. And I will see you at the next episode. Let's go.
Take care, man.
Peace.